My name's Steve McNay. I'm the Council Manager with Woughton Community Council. We've got a population of about 14,500 and our staff team is about 18 full-time equivalent, made up of 25, 26 individual staff members. Digital solutions are really important for Woughton because as we move forward we need to be able to record and provide evidence of the value that we offer as a council. The new app that we've worked on with Cloudy IT is, I suppose for want of a better phrase, a client record system, but it's so much more than that. It provides us with an overview of all of the activities that we're delivering, the people that we're supporting, how we're doing that, and the outcomes that come from the work that we've done. At the heart of our work and at the heart of this app is how we can best engage with and support the residents of our community. They're the reason that we're here. It's their council and we're here to do the best that we can for them. And what this app does is it enables us to do it more efficiently, in a more modern way, and in a way that enables our officers to spend more time focusing on the people and less time focusing on the paperwork.
Hello and welcome to our Cloud Productivity and Finance Summit. Thank you very much for joining us here today. It really is going to be an excellent event, and we're joined by some brilliant partners and customers of Cloudy and people connected in the local government sector. So my name is David Hall. I'm the Managing Director of Cloudy IT, and today we're going to be talking about cloud productivity and finance. And as I mentioned, got some great guests along today. So just to let everyone know, this is the 5th virtual summit that Cloudy have actually put on. We put on lots of events focused on local government and the key concerns facing councils and clerks and officers. And obviously it's been a really busy 6 months for everyone in the sector, moving to in-person meetings and hybrid with council elections, a huge amount of change going on. And we're really keen just to really provide a bit of best practice and signposting for clerks and councils and officers and councillors really that are looking to improve their IT services. So please stay tuned for a really busy event. So we've got here today, let me just flick over my screen. Where are we? We've got our guest joins today. We have Caroline from the Managing Director of Realtor. So a lot of you will know Caroline, and also Iri, who is one of the operations managers at Realtor, as well as Kevin, who's the technical director. Thanks guys for joining us. We're really looking forward to your session a bit later, where we're going to be covering some key aspects of Realtor's suite and what it can do for your council. We've also joined by Steve McNay, who's the council manager for Woughton Community Council, and Steve will be talking about a new youth services app that he has had deployed within the council. So we're really looking forward to hearing some of the benefits that it's brought to Woughton Council. So thanks, Steve. Looking forward to seeing you later. And finally, we have Sarah Dawson joining us. Sarah is from Stamford Town Council. She's a deputy clerk, and she'll be talking about some of the wonderful things Sarah's done around creating apps herself for the council, which I think is just incredible. And we love to find stuff like this and shine a bit of spotlight on it. So Sarah, we're really looking forward to hearing some of the challenges you faced when creating those apps and some of the benefits you've seen. So as I've mentioned, we've got a busy session here today, so we should be all wrapped up by just before lunch for everyone. But as you can see here, we've got the Realtor session starting first, where they'll be focusing on accounting for large town and parish councils, as well as then focusing on their new integrations with Microsoft 365, Sharepoint, and those Kevin will be covering a lot around that and all the apps they've integrated it with as well. So really relevant to certainly what the theme is for the summit today. We'll have a Q&A session after that, so if anyone has any questions, please do put them in the chat. Please, this is being streamed live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we are taking questions for everyone here today. So any questions, please put them in. And at the end of the Realtor session, we'll be asking them questions put out from the public. And then we'll have a short break for 15 minutes. And then we'll go into the session with Steve and also Sarah. And we're talking about apps for councils and seeing the main benefits that they've seen when deploying these apps. Talk to them a bit about the journey they've gone through. Obviously, we all know now that trying to be more productive and run a much more efficient council is so important. You're just being asked to do more with less. And how do you do that? And the answer is technology. So really looking forward to it. So thanks to our guests for joining us here today. And I think we'll have a bit less of me talking and go into the first session. So I think Caroline and Iri are going to do the first bit. So Caroline and Iri, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, David.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much. I'm really looking forward to this. And, whenever we've done an event with our partners before, whether it's been about security or document management or web accessibility, I find it really interesting to hear these sessions. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure a lot of the people watching here today are as well. But yeah, thanks ever so much. And I'll leave you both to it.
Thank you very much, David.
Cheers. Oh, Caroline, I think you're just on mute at the moment. If you just unmute yourself. That's it. Yeah, perfect. Oh, you're back on mute again. Yeah. There you go. That should be fine now, Caroline.
Brilliant.
There we go.
Thank you very much, David, and sorry about that technical hitch. We're very pleased to be joining this webinar this morning, and we're going to talk to you about software solutions and how they can benefit town, parish and community councils. So just a little bit about us to start with. So we provide market-leading software to town, parish and community councils, and we're really pleased to say that this year we celebrate our 25th anniversary of being in this sector and providing what is known as the Omega and Alpha accounting to town, parish and community councils. We have over 1,000 councils now using our software, from the very smallest to the largest. And I looked at the preset values for 2021, and of those top councils with over £1 million precept, there are 66 of them, of which we've got 77%. Some of those councils have been with us since 1996 and have evolved with us on our journey in providing solutions to town and parish councils. But we also cater for the smallest, and currently our smallest has a precept of 13,000. So we have about a 50-50 split between large and small councils. So the solutions that we offer are Alpha accounts, which are for our smaller councils, because Alpha can report on a receipts and payments or income and expenditure basis. This covers cash book, management accounts and annual budgeting, and obviously the VAT return, which does include making tax digital submissions. For larger councils, we offer Omega, which reports on an income and expenditure basis, and because it can add sales and purchase ledgers, purchase order processing and phased budgeting. So hence why we've got so many of those large councils with us today. We also have an asset inventory, which links to the annual return for you to record all of your assets, to include disposal. We also offer allotment management, and the allotment management includes mobile inspections and through an app, which I know we're going to be talking about a lot today. We also have facilities bookings management, which again includes a website booking calendar integration. Our cemeteries and memorial management has just been brought into our Realtor suite, and last Friday was our first demonstration of that new product. So we've upgraded our cemeteries and memorial management, and that was received really well. And our final application is our planning application management, and this controls planning applications coming in from your unitary or district authority. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Iri, who's going to start with the main principles of town, parish and community councils accounting. So over to you, Iri.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you, David, for inviting us, and good morning, everybody. So in our presentation, we would like to discuss and explain the main accounting requirements for parish, town and community councils. We have prepared the list of recommended monthly procedures for the councils, and also we have compiled a report that council may wish to prepare on a monthly basis, and the report that council need to prepare at year end. And for the larger councils, we will be discussing some additional ledgers that the council might find helpful in achieving efficiency and accuracy of their accounts. And let's start with the source of information. So if you have a question or you're looking for guidance, the first source of information for you is a practitioner's guide. There are two editions. One is for England and the other one is for Wales. And this practitioner's guide covers smaller authorities. Under smaller authorities, they consider to be the councils whose total income or total expenditure does not exceed 6.5 million for England, and for Wales it should not exceed 2.5 million. So just to reiterate, the practitioner guide gives you guidance if you are considered to be a smaller authority or as they call it, a smaller local government body in Wales. So now I would like to talk about some accounting requirements specific to the parish, town and community councils. And starting with is a balance sheet. And if you're the council who needs to prepare a statutory balance sheet, you will have the following items on your balance sheet. You will have current assets, you will have current liabilities, and both of those items will be supported by the various types of reserves. You will notice that statutory balance sheet will not have long fixed assets and will not have long-term liabilities. So, if the council need to account for their fixed assets, properties and machinery, they will have to keep a clear and up-to-date asset register. The items are added to the asset register at their acquisition cost, and they will keep their value until the disposal. So it means that the assets are not subject to the depreciation. However, in some situations, the council can revalue their asset. And for more information, please look into the Practitioner's Guide. So your asset register will have your tangible assets like property and machinery, but it will also include your long-term investments. Long-term investments are investments over 12 months and with no easy access to the funds. And also if there could be a loss of value if you want to withdraw your funds before the maturity date. If the council is disposing of its fixed assets, such proceeds are called capital receipt reserves. And if these proceeds are over £10,000, then the council cannot spend this money for the revenue purposes and can only spend for capital purposes, such as buying another fixed asset or paying for the capital grants or also repaying a long-term loans. So if the council take a long-term loan, it will be council's long-term liability, which this item is not appearing on your statutory balance sheet. Usually the council will require a long-term loans if they need funds for the capital project. Before such loans are taken, the council will be subject to the full financial appraisal to make sure that they can meet the obligations of interest repayment and the capital repayments. The main provider of the loans for parish, town and community councils is a Public Works Loan Board. There are other companies can provide you with the long-term loans, but we would advise to seek professional advice to make sure that the council is aware of all the terms and conditions that can be attached to such loans. And as we said, your total current asset less your current liabilities should be supported by the reserves. One of the types of reserves, and they will have all council will have them, is the general reserves. Practitioner's Guide recommends that you maintain a certain level of the general reserves, and to calculate and give you approximate guidance how big this level is, Practitioner's Guide recommends to calculate your net revenue expenditure. So that is your precept and other funds received through levies, less your loan repayments, less your capital expenditure, and less any transfers to earmarked reserve. So that will give you a figure of your net revenue expenditure. So for smaller councils, your general reserves should be at the level closer to 12 months of net revenue expenditure. For larger councils whose net revenue expenditure is over £200,000, could keep the level of their general reserves closer to 3 months. Apart from general reserves, some councils will have earmarked reserves, and these are reserves that are allocated for a specific project, and they are subject to regular review and justification. There are no upper or lower limit for your earmarked reserves because the project can vary. However, If your earmarked reserves are high, the auditor might ask you questions and will require you to explain. Some councils might receive their funds through community infrastructure levy, or for short SIL. Such funds will also can be called as restricted funds because they usually have a conditions on what council can spend this money or how the council can spend this money. If the council have not spent their SIL funds, then any outstanding balance need to be transferred to earmarked reserves. Just be aware that your principal authority can request money back if you have not spent your SIL monies within 5 years. When you receive your SIL money, please record the date and the amount of the funds received, as when it comes to spending, you have to spend on first in, first out basis. So the funds you received earlier needs to be spent first. Due to the various developments processes, now some of the councils have to account for charity and limited assurance companies, which have a slightly different accounting requirements and can be accommodated within our Realtor's software solutions. And now I would like to talk about two accounting bases: receipts and payments and income and expenditure. So if you're the council, it's usually a smaller council who report on receipt and payment basis. It means that you account for your receipts and payments when you actually pay money or when you receive money. If you're not sure what accounting basis your council is reporting, then you can have a look at your annual return, or AGR, at box 7 and box 8. The councils who report on R&P basis, their box 7 and 8 will be the same. And this is because the R&P councils do not account for accruals, debtors, creditors, receipts in advance, and prepayments at year end. Such councils also do not require to prepare a balance sheet. For larger councils who report on income and expenditure basis, means that you report for your income and expenditure in a period it happens and not when you actually pay or receive money. Your AGR, box 7 and 8, will be different. And that is because you will have to account for your debtors, creditors, receipt in advance, and repayments at year end. Also, the I&E councils will have to prepare a statutory balance sheet report. If not on a monthly basis, then definitely at year end. So it's important to remember that if you're R&P council, you need to monitor that you do not overlook the need to convert from receipt and payment basis to income and expenditure basis. So if your expenditure, total income or total expenditure, is over £200,000 for 3 consecutive years, then on the third year you have to convert from R&P to I&E basis. You need to remember that you will have to convert your third year and the previous year as well. There are more information available in the Practitioner's Guide. Now we would like to talk about the VAT and making tax digital. So as we know, there are councils who are VAT registered and the councils who are not VAT registered. If the council is not VAT registered, they can still claim VAT on their council expenditure using Form S126. The form needs to be submitted to HMRC and must contain information of supplier's VAT numbers, the description of the purchase, and the VAT amount. The councils who are VAT registered will have to submit their regular business VAT return. And both of those reports are available in our Alpha and in our Amiga financial solutions. The councils need to remember to check HMRC website for any new VAT notices, just in case, to make sure that they are aware of any changes that could affect the way they account for VAT. And the council who claim VAT on supplies for exempt sales needs to remember that there is a limit, and they should not overstate it and overclaim such VAT from HMRC. Okay, and probably most of you are aware that from the 1st of April 2022, all VAT registered businesses, and that includes VAT registered councils, irrespective of their revenue, will have to submit tax digitally. Under making tax digital requirements, some records must be kept digitally with a functional and compatible software. And also, transfer of data has to be performed electronically. We are very glad to say that all our modules, including sales ledger, purchase ledger, VAT, bookings, are all digitally linked. In this slide, we have given you 2 examples of VAT returns that are both available from Realtor's financial solutions. On the left-hand side is an example of VAT report for VAT registered council, business VAT. On the right-hand side is a report form S126, which is required to be submitted by council who are not VAT registered. And now I would like to hand over back to Caroline, who will continue with the presentation and will start with recommended monthly procedures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iri. That was very informative. So, following on from the requirements, how do we ensure that we produce monthly accounts for the council? So if you're just working on a cash book only, which can be on a receipts and payment basis, income and expenditure, you need to enter all of your transactions. And those need to be entered accurately to ensure that the reports that come out are accurate. Whilst we've talked about the 200k limit for an RMP to convert to an INE, the practitioner's guide does allow for a smaller INE council to report receipts and payment throughout the year and then convert it year end. Therefore, a council sort of below the 350,000 limit can do receipts and payments and then do a conversion to INE at year end, and our Alpha INE does that very nicely. Once you get over 350k, you're really looking at doing INE reporting on a monthly basis. So you need to then, once you've entered all your transactions, complete your cash book and bank reconciliation to ensure that all entries have been made and all items paid and received. The bank reconciliation ensures that the movement on your bank accounts has been recorded correctly in your cash book. At month end, you should check your actuals against budget to ensure that there are no overspends or even underspends. And if there are either of those, then we should be looking at our nominal ledger, our budget heads, to ensure that we have not miscoded. It's much better to do this before you give the reports to council. Again, whilst we look at expenditure, we should check that we have received income. And on payments, we should check that if we have a credit note from a supplier, that we ask for that money to be returned to us. It's very easy to lose sight of credit notes when you're not operating a ledger system. Again, at month end, we would look at our nominal ledger to ensure there's no miscoding, and we would use a journal to correct any miscodings. If we do this on a monthly basis, then the year end runs much more smoothly. We should always at month end check our VAT return against our VAT control account to ensure what we submit to HMRC is accurate. When we add sales or purchase ledger to a set of accounts, we then have some additional steps at month end. So we need to raise and post all of our sales invoices and obviously receipt any that have been paid for in that period to ensure again that that filters through to our bank reconciliation. We should check our outstanding balances for unpaid invoices and ensure that they are chased on a monthly basis so that they do not become bad debts. With the purchase ledger, it's very similar, although we're just going to enter our invoices and post them. And then we're going to enter the payments in the purchase ledger. With good accounting software, there should now be the ability to upload an electronic file to the bank so that we again are reducing the point of error. Again, all of the major banks have the facility to allow the RFO or clerk to upload a file and then for counsellors to release that file for payment. With the purchase ledger, we should check all our outstanding balances at month end to ensure that suppliers have all been paid on time. So once we've done our data entry and checked it every month, we should then be able to look at our management reports. Again, for both Alpha and Amiga, or for receipts and payment or income and expenditure councils, we should have a report that is a clear, concise and accurate report that informs council of its expenditure against budget and its income against budget, so that council can look at for any overspends and decide where that overspend is going to be paid for, and an agreement as made at a committee meeting. Our bank reconciliations should also go to our council meeting at least quarterly. So the council should have sight of a bank reconciliation with the bank statement and it be signed off as being accurate. The budget reports should go to council again at least quarterly, and if not half yearly, as when we get to September and we start to look at our precept for the following year, we need to look at projecting what our spend is going to be by the year end to ensure that we have a reserve figure so that we can do our precept for the following year, as we may want to supplement our precept from our reserves. The ability to forecast in software is very useful, and the Amiga and Alpha both have a 5-year forecast. We should have a balance sheet, as Iri has gone into great detail on the balance sheet, what is required on there, but that should be our current assets and our current liabilities, equaling our reserves. The statutory receipts and payment or statutory income and expenditure report is again required by audit at year end, but these two reports can be used throughout the year to identify our movement on our general reserve throughout the year. The trial balance shows all of our debits and credits that have been entered into a double entry system. So the trial balance should always balance, but it can be used to look at the income and expenditure and to ensure that it is sitting on the right side of the trial balance. This again can highlight if you've made an error. Then we move on to our year end. So we should be able, at the press of a button, to produce our AGAR for either England or Wales, as they are slightly different from our accounting solution. Our AGAR has to be box 7 and 8 for receipts and payment, needs a cash and investment reconciliation to confirm the figures. So that's a combined bank reconciliation. And for the AGAR on an income and expenditure basis, we also need to see a reserves reconciliation. So the difference between box 7 and 8, which, as Iri said earlier, is our debtors, creditors, prepayments, accruals and receipts in advance. The Welsh AGAR is slightly different in that they actually show the debtors and creditors on the AGAR form itself. However, you still need the supporting documents to support how those debtors and creditors figures have been compiled. On my next slide, I'm just going to show on the right-hand side is a cash book reconciliation. So it should be nice and clear and concise so that counsellors can look at it and make an informed decision that it has been accurately reconciled. So, for example, on ours, you start with the closing balance of your bank account at the point that you have reconciled. It will show any unpresented checks and any uncleared receipts. And counsel should pay attention to those unpresented items and ensure that they are not really old, that they receipts are have not been outstanding really for longer than a week, because our receipts should hit the bank account almost straight away unless we're doing it via postal system. Our actuals against budget, again, should be a clear and concise report. It shouldn't be too long, but it should be long enough to allow counsellors to look at the headings and understand what that expenditure or income is for and how that is performing against the budget. With larger councils, they like to show committed expenditure, so purchase orders that have been raised, which means at the point that the order is raised, the council has committed to that expenditure, therefore leaving funds available. The second example I'm just going to show you is just an AGAR. So on the right is a I&E AGAR, so an income and expenditure reported AGAR, and box 7 and 8 are showing different figures. And then the supporting reserves reconciliation is there on the left-hand side, quite clearly showing our box 7 figure, then our debtors and how they are made up, then all of our creditors, coming back to our cash and bank balances. Some of the questions that we get asked on our support team are about double entry accounting and data trail. So the day-to-day entry is fine, but for the non-accountants, and a clerk wears many hats, so sometimes the accounting side may be the least that they know about, and they get confused about whether it's a debit or credit and how I correct an entry. So I'm just going to show the trial balance and endeavour to explain how the entries feed into the trial balance. So on this trial balance, I've got some debtors. So debtors will be feeding through from a sales ledger. So you've raised an invoice. So I'm going to raise an invoice for £100. So that will increase my debtors. So that will be the debit. And the opposite side of my transaction is that it will go to an income code, and that is a credit. The other types of things that are normally debit balances are bank accounts, unless they're overdrawn, but hopefully we don't have any of those within our council system. And our expenditure normally sits as a debit balance. A credit note, if there was a credit note on its own, it would sit as a credit balance on expenditure. On the opposite side of the trial balance, on the credit side, we would see any credit card balances, our reserves, creditors, so those would be feeding through from our purchase ledger, and our income codes sit on the credit side, because as I explained, if we have £100 coming in as a debtor, that sits on the debit side, so the opposite side is a credit to our income code. So how does that data filter through? So when we enter a payment or a receipt via our cash book, there are three amounts that we enter. There is a gross amount, a VAT amount, and a net amount. There are some situations where you won't have a VAT amount because it will be exempt from VAT or zero rated, but a normal payment will have a gross VAT net amount. So the gross amount filters into our cash book to reflect the movement on our bank account so that we can carry out a bank reconciliation. Our VAT filters into our VAT control account nominal, and that then equals the VAT return to be submitted to HMRC. The net amount filters into either our expense code or a receipt code, which in turn filters into our income and expenditure report and filters into our AGAR. It really is important to input the information correctly at the point of entry. That's the best saving tip that we at Realtors can give anybody. However, mistakes do happen, and that's why we then need a method, which is journals, to correct them. When we add ledgers to a system, the invoices are either entered into the purchase ledger or created in the sales ledger, but before they get posted, they don't affect either our income or our expenditure. When the invoices get posted, when they've been finalized and we're happy that they can affect our accounts, the gross amount updates our ledger balance, so it increases our ledger balance. The VAT goes to the VAT control account, and the net again filters into our expense and income codes, again reflecting in our income and expenditure reports and our AGAR. When we have a ledger, those invoices then get paid. So at the point that they get paid, they are now going to affect the bank account. So they will decrease the ledger balance to increase or decrease, depending on whether it's a receipt or a payment, our cash book balance, so that we can then do our bank reconciliations. Now, I'd just like to highlight for some of the larger councils. So as I said, we have a 50-50 split between our small and large. But for our larger councils, where they want to do full accruals accounting throughout the year, they then add, for example, sales ledger. So what does the advantage of a sales ledger give them? It allows them to produce invoices efficiently and accurately, and removes the need for double entry in that if they're being historically have been created in a Word document, they then have to be entered into the account system. And quite often that is only done at the point of receipt. So therefore their accounts aren't as accurate as if they could create the invoice and put it into a ledger, because then the income is affecting the income and expenditure report in the correct period. The ability to email invoices. So if you have a sales ledger, you can then email invoices. Again, efficiency saving. Within a good sales ledger, you should have the ability to create regular invoices. So something, if you've got invoices that need to be created on an annual basis, you should be able to set up all the information and then annually generate the invoice. As I said earlier, it's about accounting for the income in the correct period, in the period that it's happened rather than in the period when it was receipted. Debtors control allows you to stay on top of outstanding invoices to ensure they don't become aged debtors, and give you history about your customers. On this screen is just an example of two reports. There are many reports within our suite, but an unpaid invoices report by customer so that you can chase those unpaid invoices, and again, outstanding balances that would be used to confirm your balance sheet debtors. The purchase ledger. Purchase ledger is very similar, But with a purchase ledger, we just enter our suppliers' invoices, again, ensuring that we're accounting for the expenditure in the correct period rather than the period it is paid when we use it as a receipts and payments basis. It helps avoid duplicate payments because you'll enter the invoice and you therefore can keep a check on whether that invoice has already been paid or not. Again, it allows you to upload an electronic payment file to your bank, again, to ensure that there's not errors made when somebody is then physically keying in at the bank, avoiding duplication and unnecessary work. Again, you have the ability to control your creditors to ensure that everybody is paid timely, and you will have your outstanding creditors report to support your balance sheet items. An additional module that is very useful is purchase order processing. This allows you to raise your orders, and at the point you raise your order, it then commits your expenditure. Again, ensuring that council has really the most up-to-date, accurate information. With a good purchase order system, at the point that the goods are received and the invoice is received, the committed expenditure converts to actuals. Obviously, you would also have the ability to monitor any outstanding purchase orders. And finally, I would just like to talk about phased budgets. Phased budgets can be done on a monthly, quarterly, a percentage basis to represent seasonal activity. So for some of our larger councils, they will have seasonal activity such as dinghy parks, allotments, community centres where there's seasonal activity because perhaps at Christmas they hold many more events than during the summer months. And so it again allows more accurate reporting against budget. At this point, I would just like to remind everybody that there is the ability to ask a question. So if you have any questions on anything that Iri or I have presented, then please do pop a question. And I'm sure Ryan will be filtering those through in a while. And now I would like to hand over to Kevin, our technology director, who's going to talk about the Realtor Suite and Microsoft 365 and streamlining your council.
Brilliant, Caroline. Well, thanks ever so much, and to Iri as well. Caroline, you could be the host here. I think you're doing a fantastic job of that. So thanks for introducing Kevin. And yeah, really informative, I think, for any clerk, RFO, officer who's running, these key financial services. We can see why you're the leaders in the sector, and congratulations, obviously, as well, with 25 years, did you say?
Yes,
in the sector?
yes.
Absolutely amazing to do something consistently at such a high level is a real achievement. So yeah, definitely congratulations. So yeah, thanks for your section there. Obviously, we're going to be moving on to Kevin's section now, which is really exciting again, and I think it just shows the continued investment being made by Realtors in technology and moving with the times. And we all know that nothing stands still, and certainly to be ahead of the game and continue to be ahead of the game is actually quite tricky. So Kevin, really looking forward to this section. Obviously, as a Microsoft partner and a 365 specialist here at Cloudy, we have a real big focus on productivity and utilising 365 to create more productive, engaging councils. So I think definitely heading in the right direction here, and we're really excited to be working with you on a number of these projects. So yeah, Kevin, I'll probably leave it over to you now to do your next presentation. So thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having us on this session, and good morning, everyone. So I've got a few slides to go through, and then I'm also going to give a demo. So it's not going to be death by PowerPoint all morning. Okay, so Microsoft 365. So as you may or may not know, it's got extensive features as standard. I think one of the things that we've noticed, though, is that often those features are not necessarily adopted. That might be because you didn't know that feature was included as part of your 365 license. It also might just be that it's kind of like, yeah, I've heard about this feature called Sharepoint or Forms or whatever it might be, but it's how would I use that? What would be the use case for that? I guess the other point is, it's all very well using some of these features, but how do those features then join in with the rest of our systems? And then I guess the final 2 points really saying, obviously, if you're a 365 customer, you're paying Microsoft these features, whether you use them or not. So what we're kind of looking to do is where customers have got 365, if there's some complementary features within 365 that we can help you use to increase the footprint of the Realtor solution, then that's a good win for both Realtors from a point of view of providing better solutions, and obviously from yourselves because you're actually making the most of what you have. I guess it's probably fair to say that some of what I'm going to talk about, you could potentially do it yourself. And I know Sarah's going to be talking about what she's been doing with 365. But I guess, and I'm sure Sarah will attest to this, there's probably a learning curve in actually learning how to use some of these features. And so hopefully what we're at Realtors trying to do is take some of the pain away from that by providing some standard offerings. So in terms of the first two things that we're looking at with Realtors, the where appropriate, I guess, is important there. There's lots of things that 365 can do, but two things that we're kind of excited about is Sharepoint for electronic documents, document management, attachments, and Microsoft Forms for mobile data capture. That's not to say both of those systems can't do other things, but that's the kind of two use cases that we see. So just a little bit about Sharepoint, because you may or may not be familiar with it. So the way I think of Sharepoint is a kind of a document repository or a document management system. Now, you can make it really, really complicated. You can put approvals on documents. You can publish documents. You can even use Sharepoint as a kind of internal website intranet for doing communication, etc. But I like to think of the simplest use case is just kind of think of it as a bit like a shared drive or a network drive, but something that you can kind of access from anywhere. So what we're looking to do is to use Sharepoint for attachments within Realtor Suite, so that you're effectively using those features that you're paying for from Microsoft to store documents. You're paying for all of this space that you can use. But be able to access that directly from Realtor Suite, both for new records and also for history. So that although it's stored on Sharepoint, it actually will be really easy to access from Realtor Suite. Initially, we're looking to use this for purchase ledger invoices because it's something that that we've had requirements for and requests for from customers, a solution for this. But we will look at other areas. But that will really be down to council demand. We really do try and take on board feedback from councils in terms of what they'd like to see in the solutions. And so, we'd really encourage you to reach out to us. And if there's something that you want the system to do, then please let us know. That's not to say we can do everything all of the time, but we absolutely do look at what's been most requested, and that's where we spend our time. So in terms of the purchase ledger invoices and how this is going to work, and I'm going to demo this in a second. So effectively, you'd save or upload your invoice onto Sharepoint. We need to get it onto Sharepoint. That's where it needs to be stored. That can obviously be whatever format you've got. So most of your suppliers are probably emailing you PDFs already. Sometimes it might be a Word document. If you're not getting either of those two, then unfortunately, if you are getting it in on paper in the post, then you need to get that into electronic format, either via scanning it if you've got a printer scanner, or most mobile phones now will take a very good picture that's perfectly adequate for a document scan. And what we have the concept of is an incoming or an unprocessed folder. So, and you probably do this already now. When you get an email with an invoice on it, you probably save them somewhere already. But what we're saying is you just save them into this one folder, and that's where Realtor Suite will then pick them up from to be processed and paid. And I'll demo this in a second. So you'd enter the invoice into Realtor Suite, into the purchase ledger as now. And then what you'll notice, there's a new attachments button where you can view all of your incoming invoices. You can click on them to preview them, so you can actually check you're picking up the right one. Once you've found the one that you want to process, you tick the box to select it. And then when you save the invoice in Realtor, what that then does is on SharePoint, it renames the invoice to a standard format. So I'm sure you'll all have found that invoices come in all sorts of file name formats from suppliers. It might be invoice number with an invoice, might be invoice, the word invoice with an invoice number. It could just be the word invoice. It could be all manner of things, often that aren't very informative. So what we do at the point that we process the invoice, we rename it to a standard format, which includes the supplier's account code, the month number that it was processed in, the date of the invoice, and the invoice number. Just so on SharePoint, you've got a file name that's a lot more meaningful. And then we move the invoice to the process folder so that that invoice has then been dealt with and is now in a kind of processed archived folder. So that's doing a new one. And then the other side of it is on the supplier's account screen. You can now, once you've used that process, you can then directly access the invoice electronically from the supplier's account screen. So you don't need to keep all these paper files or, searching through emails or network drives to try and find a copy of the invoice. If you've put the invoice on at the point that you enter the invoice, you will always be able to access it from the supplier account screen. The other thing is, if you want to do a bit of a tidy up of your invoices, perhaps you've got them somewhere, but they're not really very well organized. On the apply account screen, you can also retrospectively attach invoices to existing invoices in the system. So if you did want to kind of digitally archive all of your invoices, perhaps for the current financial year, you want to get on top of them and get them archived, so you don't have to keep all the paper copies. You have the option to attach invoices from the supplier account screen as well. Okay, so let's have a little demonstration. So I'm in our purchase ledger part of Omega. So, I'm sure there'll be quite a number of our customers on the call that have already got our purchase ledger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a customer, a supplier to pay. So it's going to be iTech. And I can enter the details if I want to. But what you'll notice is down the bottom here, we have this attachments button. And if I click on that, what's that's doing? That's actually going and connecting to SharePoint and giving me a list of all of the invoices in our unprocessed folder. So these are invoices that we've saved to SharePoint that we haven't yet dealt with. I can click on one if I want to, and it will pop that up on screen for me. Perhaps that was the right one, or perhaps it wasn't the right one. I click on another one. All right, I find out. Okay, it's the second iTech one I want to deal with. So I can then tick it to attach it to this invoice record. I'm then going to enter the information into the system. Ooh. It was for £100. It's standard rated. So just coming back to what Caroline was talking about in terms of VAT, the system works out the VAT and the net for me. I don't need to manually enter that. Another nice thing is, because this supplier, against the supplier, and this might be something you may or may not be aware of, because iTech they deal with our printer, it's always printing costs. You can set a default nominal coding against that supplier, so that just defaults in automatically. I don't need to go and pick the account code, that just happens automatically. And then when I save that, put some description in. When I save that, apologies. That's now processed. If I now look at the supplier account screen and find iTech, and I'm just going to, I haven't posted the invoice yet, so I'm going to include unposted. I think the one I did was for £100. You can see I've been doing quite a few this morning, just for this demo. But what you notice, there's now this extra paperclip icon in the table here, and if you So it says there's one attachment. We do support more than one. So if it was a particularly long invoice that you'd scanned it on manually and you had more than one page, you can attach multiple pages. That's fine. This one's only got one. If it's only got one, if you click on it, it'll just open it straight away. If there was more than one, it'd give you the list of which one you want to open. So there's the attachment there. Like I said, so these top 4 have already got an attachment. Perhaps these other ones, for whatever reason, we didn't put them on. Perhaps these are older ones before we had the integration, but we now want to go back and actually attach the invoices. We now get a new option. If you right click on any invoice in here, you get this attach files option. Gets the same list. Okay, which one is it? Oh, it's that one there. And what you'll notice is that, I don't know if for the observant amongst you, there were 2 iTech invoices in that list, but because I've now dealt with one of them when I entered the invoice, the list is now reducing. So they get moved off this list into the process side of the system. And I'm just going to click OK. And now we've got an invoice attached to there. And just to show that, if I again attack, now that one's gone and we've only got 4 left to deal with. So that the system is helping you keep track of what's in your incoming folder. So that's that side of it. And then the final thing I was just going to show is if I go into SharePoint, so all we've got in SharePoint is we've got some folders in SharePoint, but we've got this unprocessed folder. And then once they're dealt with, and you can call these folders what you want. I've just called it unprocessed and processed, but you could call it incoming and dealt with or whatever you want. And there's all the invoices. And as you can see, they've all been uniformly named. So the account code, the invoice number, the month number it was dealt with, and the invoice date, so that you've got, if you were manually looking in here, you can immediately go see what the invoice relates to if you did want to look in here, but obviously you can access it from the supplier account anyway. Okay, that's what I had on SharePoint. Ooh, I'm just going to go back to the my PowerPoint now, and we'll just go on to the next section. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is Microsoft Forms. And just first of all, what is Microsoft Forms? So Microsoft Forms is a way of capturing any type of information. So for things like questionnaires, comments, feedback. So as an example, for those of you that have attended any of our recent webinars, or we've got quite a number of webinars coming up, we actually use Microsoft Form to capture your enrollment in the webinar. Just an easy way of capturing information through a web page, and you can then download it to Excel, etc. But you can also use it for things like surveys and inspections. When you set it up, and I'm going to show you one in a moment, you can say, is the field text? Is it a list? You can do tick lists. You can do tick boxes. You can also capture files against the inspection, so things like photos. Those forms can be public or private. So as I just alluded to, our webinar sign-up form is a public form. Anyone can go on there and complete the form to say they want to join one of our webinars, or you can use them privately. So only within the council to anyone that's been given access to that form. And for things like inspection and surveys, obviously they'd be private. They can be really, really simple, or they can be complicated. So something really simple, just a couple of questions that you're trying to capture, or something more complex, which is where you can do things like branching and logic. So depending on the answer to a question, you get some different questions depending what you've answered. And I'll show you an example of that. And then the final thing is this is all fully aware of the device you're on. So it's mobile responsive. So if you're on a mobile, it'll look different to what it looks like on a desktop or a laptop. So it will fit the screen and be usable on a mobile device. We're in kind of early stages for looking at Microsoft Forms, because again we want kind of feedback from customers in terms of how they might be able to use this. It might be that you're already using forms to capture information, and actually you would like that information fed in and integrated into Realtor Suite. So anyone that's doing anything like that and that would like to discuss that, then please reach out. But so we're considering use cases. For us, the key thing is mobile, because being able to capture stuff on a mobile is really important. And therefore, the first thing we're looking at is cemetery inspection. So as Caroline mentioned earlier, we're just in the process of finalising our new version of cemetery and memorial management. And one of the things that will do is have a more fully featured inspection solution. And we're going to use Microsoft Forms as a way of doing those inspections directly into a mobile device and then importing that into Realtor Suite. But we are thinking about other areas, things like asset inspections, playground inspections, etc. So in terms of what we'll do for Realtor cemeteries, so basically we're going to have a standard form that you would set up on your, it's your data, so you'd set it up on your Microsoft 365, but we give you some instructions, or we could set it for you. But if you want us to do it, obviously there would be a fee for that. But it'll match your data, so i.e. your section names. You then complete the inspections on the mobile device. So whoever's doing that, your groundsman, whoever, obviously via a secure login to your 365 account, which is your data, it's on your 365 instance. And then you download that data via the standard functionality within Microsoft Forms. So effectively it downloads to a spreadsheet, but then we'll provide a standard integration to upload that into our cemetery and memorial management solution. The beauty of that is then you've got inspections against the relevant records, so you can see the history over time. So it might be a repeat offender type situation where perhaps they're putting unauthorized memorials on a grave, or it might be overgrown, or they might be planting things on the grave, shrubs or whatever that they're not allowed to. So you get the full history. You also get the kind of GDPR side of that in terms of it's all managed in a GDPR compliant way. But more importantly, it then generates the rest of the process. So our system then will generate the letters to go out to owners where follow-up's required. So let's have a little demonstration of this. So obviously I'm demoing it to you on a laptop, but one of the nice things you can do within Forms is you can preview what it'll look like on a mobile phone. So and again, these questions aren't necessarily exactly how it will look, but it gives you an idea. So the first thing is what section. So again, this would be specific to some of the questions on here would be specific to each council or each cemetery. So it's some town cemetery, and it's got 3 sections: the new section, the old section, and a west section. So I'm going to say I'm doing it in the west, and I'm doing grave 567. And what am I inspecting? So the different types of memorials we might have, or am I inspecting the gravestone? So just the grave itself. So I'm just going to say there's no memorial on this one. It's just a grave. I'm inspecting the grave. Because I've said grave, it then asks me what the grave condition is. So perhaps I'm going to say it's sunken. And again, these conditions will obviously be configurable. These are just some examples. We can put some comments against here. So perhaps it's sunken by 300 millimeters. This is something that we're going to get the groundsman to deal with. So we don't need to send a letter to the owner. So we're not going to give any letter comments for the letter, and we don't need to inspect. We don't need to send a letter, and we're going to say we're going to inspect it in a year's time. It's not desperately urgent. It's not a real health hazard. The nice thing, again, I can't do this because obviously I'm not on a mobile, but if I click on upload file, what it would then say is, do you want to take that from the camera? And you can straight away, you could take a photo of that if it was something hazardous perhaps, and attach that to the inspection. So I'm going to submit that one. It says, do I want to do another one? Yes, I do. We're still in the west section, but perhaps we're on grave now. 1, 2, 3. This time there is a memorial on the grave, and it's a headstone. And we say, there's some problems with this one. It's cracked. The lettering's still good though. And again, these questions, because I picked a memorial this time, they're different. We've done a topple test, and it's failed, unfortunately. So I click next, and so or whatever it is. Obviously, if you've got standard, as part of our solution, you can generate letters. If you had a standard wording for what terms and conditions you give them in terms of a failed test, then obviously you just have that on the standard letter. This is more if there's anything specific you want to say about this particular one. We do want to send it within a month. We do want to send them a letter, sorry, and we're going to say it needs to be inspected within a month. And again, you could take a photo of that if you want to by clicking on upload, and it'll say, do you want to take this from the camera? And there we submit that. So I know that's been a very much a whistle-stop tour of some of the things that we're looking at in terms of Realtor Suite and 365. So from SharePoint point of view for attachments, and initially in Purchase Ledger. Obviously, if anyone's got any other types of attachments in other parts of the system that they'd like to be catered for, then please do reach out to us and give us some feedback. And then in terms of Microsoft Forms for cemeteries inspections initially, and then obviously depending on the uptake of that, we'll then look if people feel that that's something of benefit, then we'll look to roll that out to other parts of the system where there's a mobile data capture requirement. So things like asset inspections is kind of an example which we suspect people might like. But yeah, that's the end of my section. I think we're going to go to Q&A now. Yeah,
hi Kevin. Well, thanks ever so much. It was really interesting to see and hear that, and thanks for the demonstrations. We know everyone knows here at Cloudy that we're big champions of 365 and SharePoint and Forms and all the other apps that are included in your subscription, whether it's sharing agenda packs or sharing files with your colleagues or using it the way you've done, which is fantastic. Another example of innovating and using technology that doesn't cost any extra, is usually included, to go serverless and go work in a more digital remote way. So really interesting. What we're going to do, Kevin, is we're going to, and obviously there are special offers that Realtors have put together. If some of these features you'd love to see included in your suite, obviously speak to Kevin and Caroline and the team, but do visit our summer offers as well, where there's a specific special offers around the Realtor suite, especially for watching or attending this summit. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to, we're going to skip the Q&A session now. We have got questions coming in, which is really good. So there's some nice ones here that I'm sure Kevin and Caroline and the team would love to answer. So we're going to finish a bit earlier. Obviously, we're going to come back at 11:05. So if everyone wants to grab a little comfort break, we're now going to play a short video from a customer who is one of ours and Realtors, and they've been migrated to the cloud, and you can use Realtors in the cloud very effectively. And there's a few comments there from their experience of doing this. But Kevin, Caroline, Iri, thank you so much for joining us for the first part of the event. It was really good to hear all the wonderful things you're doing in the sector and around the accounts package. And obviously, congratulations for your 25th wedding anniversary. I think Cloudy, we've been trading 20 years and we've been working in the sector about 7 now, and to make it 25 years in the sector would be incredible. So great to hear. So they will be joining us a bit later, so it's not the end of their part of the event at the moment, but we'll play a video now. We'll see you just after 11:05. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nikki Harmsworth. I'm the Responsible Finance Officer for Wokingham Town Council. I think for us, the fact that we could talk to Neil and David from Cloudy, and also Realtors as well. We had conversations with them. So I think my first point would be talk to people to find out exactly how it's worked, what the sort of disruption was, because as I say, I very wrongly thought that I was going to be, we were going to be without our finance package for days. And that just wasn't the case at all. It really did just what you guys worked behind the scenes, and then literally it was just a flick of a button, and it seemed to sort of work. So I'm not to say that there have been a few sort of teething things where where people have forgotten to sign off in the office and then tried to log on at home. But that's a learning curve for people. But I think, really, if people are considering going to it, then talk to you guys, talk to Realtors, and then, if they want to actually contact, other town and parishes that have gone this way, then I'd be more than happy to have discussions with people. So do it from a support point of view as well, because as I say, we do have members of staff that work on a Saturday, that work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they've still been able to give a call and someone has got back to them. So although your hours are only sort of 8 till 5:30, there does always seem to be someone there that can sort of help out, which has been great. So there's sort of been some fixes that you guys have worked around for us as well. But again, if that hasn't worked, we've just picked up the phone and then one of the support guys has given us a call and it's been sorted. So yeah, really, really impressed with the customer service that you offer. It has been great.
Everybody in the staff team is significantly happier with the system and the support that we have now. So for councillors, for example, over the recent coronavirus lockdown, we've been able to maintain online meetings because all of our councillors have access to Teams via their tablets. So I can sit here in my front room, managing 19 councillors and 4 or 5 officers and members of the public, holding an online meeting with the integrated system that Cloudy provided.
The one thing that I'm really pleased to see is that our actual councillor attendance at the meetings has actually been boosted. We're getting virtually 100% attendance at all the meetings, which I think is a really good thing, and I am in no doubt whatsoever that's by the virtue of the fact that they're able to access the remote meetings via Teams.
Hello and welcome back. We obviously really appreciate you joining us here today and taking time out of your busy schedules for our summit. And obviously the first half was devoted to finance, and we were showing the really innovative ways that realtors are using to support their customers using SharePoint, Microsoft Forms and other integrations that are coming soon. So really exciting. Thanks very much, realtors, for sharing that. So we're now on to the second part of the summit where we talk about productivity. And this is a really huge part of, I think, of 365, and trying to find these opportunities to improve productivity at your council is so important. And we're working really hard here at Cloudy with our partners, Microsoft, realtors, but also with our councils. And we're really excited to be talking to two of our councils today. Steve from Woughton, who is the council manager, and also Sarah, who is the deputy clerk at Stamford Town Council. Hi guys, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good morning, David. Yeah, all good here, mate. We're all being polite, aren't we?
I know. Well, I don't know about yourselves, but it was really good to see realtors talk earlier about all the great integrations they're doing. And I think this is what it's all about, really. It's about working across the board to improve all these different services you offer as councils. So really exciting to hear realtors talking about that. And I think now we're looking forward to really talk about what you've done at your councils and how you've driven productivity by implementing new technology at really cost-effective ways. So, really exciting. I think what's really good as well is the different approaches you've taken. So, Steve, we'll be talking a bit initially with yourself about what you've done there at Woughton. But I think before we do, it might be good for you just to introduce Woughton a bit and lay the groundwork about what you've been doing there since you've been in charge. So over to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, David. I'm going to share some slides just so you can get the overview of what's going on. I hope this is going to work. They talk about two screens and stuff, but oh, there we are. Oh, okay, it has worked. Beautiful. So yes, we are Woughton Community Council. We are a reasonably large council, I think it's fair to say, in Milton Keynes. So we were lucky enough to win the NALC Star Council of the Year in 2019, and due to events beyond our control, there weren't any awards in 2020. So we are the Star Council for the second glorious year. We have a precept of just over about 570,000-ish, and a total budget of about $1 million, 19 elected reps, and we are lucky enough, I think, in Woughton to have a very active and passionate population. So all of our councillors faced election. We haven't had to co-opt anybody. That, I think, is a really strong indicator of local democracy within our parish. We have about 26 staff, 18 and a half full-time equivalent, many part-time staff. So everyone from council manager, and I have a dedicated responsible finance / operations manager. We then run a whole range of services, from landscaping and advice and wellbeing to youth and environment and all of those things in between, I suppose. The other thing we have is community centres. So we have our council hub where I'm sitting today, but we also have 4 community centres. We have a landscape depot. We have a dedicated youth space. So all of those different areas, which we've worked hard, I think, with Cloudy. Before we worked with Cloudy, we had all these spaces, but none of them were really very connected. And so what we've been able to do is connect them all up and integrate them. So I don't think it is me doing slides. Whoever's doing slides. I was doing that one, Steve. Sorry. I feel like Chris Whitty and I need to go, next slide, please. But I don't. This is great. Whoever's doing them, Kirsty, I suspect it's you. Nice work. The reason that we first came to Cloudy was because we knew we needed to modernise. We also, at the moment, have the ongoing situation where we need to have clear, safe, Gdpr compliant and secure data collection that reflects the diversity of all of the activities that we provide, that collects that data and puts it into a place which is then able to be managed. We have been managing in using the tools that we have, so Excel spreadsheets and Word documents and password protected files here, there and everywhere. We've got an access database which is clunky at best and downright offensive at worst. It makes me wince every time I log into it. So We worked with Cloudy, I mean, it's probably 2 years ago now, and installed Office 365 and hardware across the organisation. This has brought its own benefits, particularly, I think, over the last 18 months or so, where we've seen the flexibility that comes with that cloud. We brought everybody in and said, we're going to work from home from now. Everybody picked up their computers, picked up their phones. We have an integrated phone system that works through our laptop, and everybody went home and just managed it. So what we've been doing now is working with Cloudy on a specific app that covers the essential elements of the stuff that we're doing. So there are two particular aspects of our service delivery that we're covering. So there is our advice and wellbeing service, which is essentially a kind of a first tier citizens advice type approach. We have a wellbeing officer and we have an advice worker. They work together to provide first tier advice for people. So this includes immigration and housing, benefits, taxation, income maximisation, all kinds of things. It's a really successful service. I think last year brought in somewhere in the region of £140,000 in terms of additional income to local residents, but also helped prevent families being made homeless, supported people in registering for the Right to Remain scheme, all of those sort of things. And our wellbeing service works alongside that in terms of quite often people who are experiencing issues where they perhaps need our advice service have also got issues with their well-being, their mental health, their emotional health, and our wellbeing service can help bridge that gap and provide that ongoing support to enable people to take the actions that help get them on top of whatever their issues are. And the second part of our digital solutions is our youth service, and this is where we've really focused on the app. Our youth service is, I would think, the envy of our city. We've seen youth services from our unitary authority shrink as budgets have shrunk. In Woughton, we've continued to invest in youth services. And so we provide a 6-day-a-week service with everything from dance classes and a gym to open access youth services, specific services for marginalised groups. So we have a special educational needs and disabilities group. We run the LGBTQI plus youth group for the city. You know, a whole range of, we provide sexual health services at the college. Massive amounts of stuff, and all of this stuff contributes to the well-being and the benefits to young people and the wider society. And whilst we collect the data, what we haven't had is the opportunity to do that in an effective way. And I think that's, Dave, where the work we've been doing with RIM and with the team at Cloudy has really brought some benefits. So the app essentially enables us to have a phone or a tablet or a laptop. It sits in the cloud. It works through Microsoft Teams, which is embedded within our system already. And you can log on, you can register attendances, cases, clients, safeguarding concerns. And that's another huge issue where we have people in very different parts of our organisation. And one of the things that has come clearly through many, many incidents in the past, not here, but more generally, is that talking to each other and having systems that talk to each other helps identify problems at an early stage. And so much of what we do is about early intervention and prevention. And if we can get in there at an early stage, and what this app enables us to do is to see where problems may be arising, is to provide the support at that stage where we can make a real difference rather than problems growing and growing and growing. So you then need really hard expensive interventions at a later point down the road. So this will work in the fullness of time around social return on investment and social value and all sorts of exciting stuff. But that perhaps gives an idea about where we're coming from in terms of some of the benefits of technology for us within our organisation. Does that cover it, Dave?
Steve, I don't have more questions. You answered them all, but I think, you know, what we really love about what we've done here with the help of yourselves is obviously, first of all, Woughton, I think it reflects what many councils do across the country, you know, providing really key services, and we see them, you know, not just around the traditional stuff, but it could be all sorts of stuff, not just in the community, but around, you know, sort of digital sports, etc. as well. But it's really great to work on this project, first of all, because it's, you know, such a key service around helping young people in some quite distressing situations. And we know data security is super important for you and your staff. And you're sort of rumbling along with an old Access database that was creaking at the hinges, and I think they'd lost a lot of the confidence with the staff and yourselves, and was just really being used for the bare minimum. And certainly when COVID struck, it was a case of, right, okay, what was a terrible system just didn't really function at all because no one was in the office anymore. So, we were happy to really rapidly modernize this with you and implement a brand new system built, as you said, Steve, on Microsoft Teams. And this is one of the great opportunities we're seeing at the moment with local government and councils that are already on Microsoft 365, is the Microsoft, what's called the Dataverse, which is basically a place where you can build low-code, low-cost apps to deliver some really key benefits and and drive productivity and change. So Steve, it was a pleasure working with you on this app, and we're really excited it's making such a difference. And we'll obviously continue to work. And what we're really excited about is something you touched on, is the social return on investment, because it's on 365. We've got all this data, and this is nearly phase one of developing this app with Steve. And, we actually are going to be highlighting, I'll talk about this a bit later, at our CSR event around council social responsibility or community social responsibility or cloudy social responsibility, about how these apps, how you can measure the actual difference they're making. And Steve, you can actually explain this a lot more eloquently than me, because this is something I know you're really hot on, about showing the real benefits, but intervening early and actually what the benefits for society is. So I'm really glad we could work with you on this app, Steve. And there's lots more opportunities to create apps that I think are going to really improve what you already do as an excellent council, and really make the best of it as well. So Steve, I don't know if have you got time to show the app so people can get a feel for what it looks like?
I can certainly open that up.
You want to give it a go? If you struggle, we can move on to Sarah. Not a problem at all. But
I have it open and ready, Dave. So
okay,
Ryan, could you I can make this happen. Share screen.
And I might just add, this one's full of dummy data, so there's nothing in there that's sensitive to anyone at the moment. This is purely for demonstration purposes. So, so as you can see, you might recognize this. This is Microsoft Teams. And at the moment, Steve is using it from Microsoft Teams. And anyone who works with Cloudy knows we're a big champion of Teams, and it does a lot more than what we know is just the basics, which is around video conferencing. It's a way to store files, communicate and collaborate with your colleagues as well. And this app here is just a small example of that. But Steve, do you want to just quickly talk through some aspects of it?
Okay, so you can see this on your screen, I hope, and you'll see that we have started playing with it. This is very new. So what we have got is a system which looks at incidents. So this is really identifying any incidents that happen within our services. This is great from a health and safety point of view. Again, identifying any patterns, any situations which may need to be addressed and resolved. And highlights to us as managers. We have what's called the MARF, which we won't go into in too much detail, but this is essentially a referral form for concerns around children and young people. This goes off to the unitary authority, to the safeguarding board, when any concerns arise. We then have opportunities to input. You would have seen earlier on clients. I think we have Mickey Mouse and SpongeBob SquarePants and Paddington Bear. The usual stuff that you would expect when you give a group of local government managers the opportunity to play on a new system. We then have cases. This is linked to our advice service, where we can put in a range of cases. So homelessness, flooding benefits. Goofy as my dog was one that somebody put in, I think, with regard to Mickey Mouse. And then members are the people that attend our youth services. Evaluation is where we can then run reports, and attendance is simply the numbers that attend our youth services, which again all of this stuff helps feed into the overall reports that we put out with regard to the value of our services. So some of it is quantitative. You know, we've had 42 people come to our youth club tonight. Some of it is qualitative in terms of the notes that we can attach to people's cases that say, you know, Bob Jones is happy because we've resolved his immigration, housing, finance issues, whatever else. And altogether will feed into the idea that we have this database which will enable us in the fullness of time to have a fuller picture of just the range, the scope, the size of the delivery that we're offering, the value that we are then able to offer the people, our residents, to our unitary authorities, and indeed with the social return on investment that Dave has spoken about. It enables us to kind of look and say, okay, because we're doing things here, we're probably saving things up here. And so if we spend £10 on a quick intervention here, it may save £100 or £1,000, or in the case of some of our advice work, tens of thousands of pounds through avoiding a homelessness for a family, for example, a homeless application for a family with provision then of emergency accommodation, and all of the social cost of children potentially being pulled out of school, the disruption to education, the loss of home, the loss of the social networks around. That's huge, a huge pressure on local government, on the homelessness department, on housing, on education, all of those things. If we prevent a family from becoming homeless by working with them and their landlord, addressing their debt issues, whatever it might be, and preventing that, we're saving 80, 90, 100,000 pounds for each family that potentially becomes homeless. That's where you get your social return on investment. When we spend about 50,000 a year on our advice service, and we're bringing in so much more money. So yes, the app itself. Sorry, Dave, I've wandered off on social.
No. Well, this is. I think
it is one of those things.
We're talking about what we're going to talk about in September for our CSR summit. You know, which is, you know, we want to focus on this and many other examples of how you can work in the community. But you know, just to sort of give it a background, really, you know, this is something that has been talked about for a number of years, and it was very hard to find a figure that worked for yourselves because, you know, whereas you are a larger parish council, budgets are still tight, and you know, trying to deliver this in a cost-effective way was key, and we were able to do that because of the technology, because of Microsoft 365. So you know, we're really excited to put this in for yourself, Steve, and we're looking forward to it growing and really improving the service the valuable service you provide there. So great example of 365, the apps, Microsoft Dataverse and Teams, how it works to provide a really key service for a council. I'm sure there's many other examples out there. And moving on to other examples, we're going to speak to Sarah now. So Sarah, thank you for joining us. How have you found it so far?
It was good. Yeah, really interesting so far.
Great. Well, Sarah, you know, obviously we worked together very briefly. We're looking after Stamford Council at the moment, and one of the things we're trying to do, as we do with all our councils, is to assist them with their modernisation journey. And sometimes, you know, this can take many years. It doesn't happen overnight, of course. But what we were really impressed about Stamford and the great work that you and your colleagues are doing is your adoption of technology, really. So, you know, when we came to work with yourself, actually, you're really advanced, and you've done a lot of work internally in yourselves. And it just required basically for us to come in and just provide a bit of assistance and guidance. But what we wanted to really shine a spotlight on was actually the work you've been doing, Sarah, around app development in the council, which is really unusual, but I think something to be celebrated. And we hear examples of this in other sectors where individuals have taken it upon themselves to develop solutions that improve their organization. And with Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams and the Power Platform, you can do that. And Sarah, we'll see some examples of what you've done. So, but I suppose there's a couple of slides. Sarah's just going to talk a bit about the council, just a bit of background. So Sarah, if you want to sort of talk a bit about the council and yourself, please.
Yeah, so I'm the Deputy Town Clerk and also the Bereavement Services Officer for Stamford Town Council. We've got a population of approximately 20,645, and we have a precept income of £540,900. We've got 21 councillors. 3 of those were co-opted in the initial election. We've got 5 officers, and we have some areas that we look after. The recreation ground, allotments, meadows and cemetery are all my areas that I look after. And we also have the town hall as well.
Brilliant. There we go. Cheers.
So we as council actually got Office 365 back in 2018. We were only really using the basic Word, Excel sort of apps that everyone else would automatically use. When COVID-19 hit, we did realise we had to rethink some things, because we were still using a network base in the town hall. So I, being the more tech savvy of the officers, actually uploaded everything onto Sharepoint. And then obviously we got some laptops so we could work from home. Whilst at home, some of the areas that I look after did mean that we needed to rethink how we were working, especially with my department. So allotment inspections is one of the areas that I look after. And when you're on site and you're at home, you haven't got access to print everything off, because obviously databases on currently we use on Access. Obviously that's not compatible with a mobile phone, so there was issues with that, and also just being able to print documents, to have a clipboard and fill out information like that. And obviously with data protection, you don't want to be taking reams of paper with you with people's details on, just in case they get lost. The other area, main area I look after, is the cemetery, and I'm sure most councils are all the same as we are, that have reams of books that they have to fill in, all the burial registers, grant registers. When I first started 4 years ago, everything was handwritten regarding the grants. The only things we used to sort of print was the letters to people and the memorial permits, which we used to send to the stonemasons. When we came to things like memorial inspections, I had lots of random bits of paper with very little details other than a plot number and no dates, nothing sort of concrete for me to sort of work with. So I did have to sort of rethink, how can I do memorial inspections without any data, obviously, because I can't take all the books home with me. So I did have a look at different solutions that we could, and saw that we could do Power Apps. And that's where I sort of went through the internet and looked through different videos of how to do it. So I sort of taught myself how to use the Power App system. It's very basic, my knowledge. I'm not a programmer, so very much copy and pasting different ways of making things work is how I sort of went through it all.
Wow. Well, I mean, this is what we thought was brilliant when we came and had a look at your systems and started the process of assisting you with the modernisation. And just as a bit of context, really, I suppose, we do see this a lot with 365, and it's just been heavily underutilised. Organisations still don't put their files in it, and they're still using the server and stuff like that, which is fine. But ultimately, you can pretty much do most things through 365 and through SharePoint and OneDrive, etc. now. And what we loved with, obviously, what we saw what Sarah had done was she'd also taken quite a few steps further than we normally see, and had started to create these apps. And what's great about these apps is, as I think Sarah sort of identified, is they really are low code. Anyone can build an app within the Dataverse and make it work. Now, obviously, there are some technical aspects to it when you scale it up and make it look maybe a bit prettier in terms of the UI and the user interface. But I think from a functionality point of view, it's great. And I mean, obviously, your day job isn't app development, Sarah, is it? It's
No.
you run these services as a deputy clerk, and your job is to run the council. But you found time to do this, and we think it's brilliant. And this really shows what other councils can do. to help them modernise as we come out of COVID. And I think deal with this new world we find ourselves, which is a very hybrid world. People I think want to get back to the office, but they want the flexibility as well. And to have that available is so important. And whether you're on your laptop, your mobile phone, a tablet, in whatever location, you can still do your job, which is super important. So, Sarah, I don't know, are you able to share your screen? I don't know if it's something sensitive, but maybe just show people a bit of an example about what this looks like and help them, get a feel for it, really.
All right, just bear with me 1 second. Is that sharing? There we go. So this is the memorial inspection one. So there's no actual data, and obviously people who are deceased don't fall under data protection anyway. So I set it up so it automatically includes the title of the cemetery, and does an auto date as well, to save me having to do that when you're doing quite a lot of plots. We've got over 20,000 interments in the cemetery, so obviously memorial inspections take a long time. Once it's usually a 5-year rolling inspection, and by the time you've finished, you're probably starting again. So I set these as well, so some of these aren't mandatory, because obviously a plot number, you don't always have all the details on you, so this information could be fed in afterwards, but usually you know which section you're in. So that was one that you could just type in which section. If I just do something as I'm doing it, and then name on the headstone. So logs, and then you just answer the questions. Are the joints intact? So yes or no. Are the curbs breaking apart? Yes or no. Is it leaning? Are the faults? So these are all sort of questions that you have to answer. What the type of the stone is, so you could select that as well. Size of the memorial, and also you've got just hide that, what the ground conditions are as well. This is just the initial sort of risk assessment, so you can sort of determine if there's any faults that you need to then look at. And the great thing is you can then go back, and when you're back in the office, fill in the other information you haven't got, and then work out, right, I need to send the grant holder a letter for this because it's leaning or there's issues with it.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, it's just fantastic to see that someone who has no coding experience be able to put this together and store information securely, digitally as well. And what we're excited about is to work with, councils like Stamford and Woughton to continue that development with them, and, include things like geotagging. So it will automatically take your location if you're at the side, and then put that on a map, so that, if you don't know the plot number or the location, it just adds it for you. So there's some great features that can be added, but I think we're really showing the power of the platform, how you can build apps like this that can, low cost. I think the cost for that app, Sarah, is what, £6 a month?
I think it's part of our system, actually. I think the subscription we've got E3.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. So and that's a great thing with 365. You've got the flexibility of your licensing as well. So you can have, from the very basic license to one that includes apps like Sarah and her team have been using as well. So well, that's great, Sarah. I mean, it's really exciting to hear and see and put a spotlight on the work you're doing there. And this is what's happening all over the country and all over the sector. So, really exciting. And, here at Cloudy, we're big champions of this, as I've mentioned before. And we've got some really exciting news to announce, working with the likes of SLCC, etc., that you should see in the news soon. So certainly watch this space. But we just wanted to have a very short section on this, really, to show productivity in action. Obviously, we have done previous events where we talk about how to share agenda packs, how to broadcast your council meetings, etc. But this is a really exciting area of growth for councils, and I think both these councils have done a great job. So thanks ever so much for joining us, Sarah and Steve. Anything else you'd want to say before you go to everyone?
I'm going to take inspiration from Sarah and go and play with Power Apps now, because it looks brilliant. And yeah, I mean, if that's what this, I do need to check, I suspect, David, what our licensing is and whether or not we've got the same license as Sarah. But if this is what you can do without going to the kind of, in the nicest possible way, David, the IT nerds, and you can
yeah,
just
of course,
then you know, Sarah, I may well come and tap you up for knowledge and inspiration.
Yeah, they're quite easy to set up. You start off with the SharePoint list is how you start it, and then there's a drop down to integrate into a Power App. You just have to select then a bit further in what you want, because it'll only put so many on the screen at once, but you just add the other fields you want. And obviously, once you've set your SharePoint list, you can obviously do choices and things, and that's how I've got the ones with the drop downs. So I set them already in the list and then created it from there.
She makes it sound so easy, doesn't she? I'm sure it is. I think you'll be doing YouTube videos, Sarah, on how to do this. You'll become an influencer or something. But it is great. It's great to see councils do this and work hard to save costs, save money, and find innovative ways to do things. And as I mentioned, something that Cloudy are really passionate about as well. And we actually operate a charity called the Cloudy Foundation, and we work with young people around app development. And we've got a number of programs we're running at the moment, giving young people the opportunity to build apps and work on real projects. And we've done that in the past with a couple of our councils. But thanks for joining us. If anyone's got any questions for Sarah and Steve, please do put them in the chat. I'm sure afterwards they'll be happy to answer any questions anyway. But yeah, please do put them in the chat. I know we've got a lot of questions actually for Realtors, for Caroline and the team, so that's really exciting. But Steve, Sarah, thanks ever so much. We'll move on with the rest of the summit, and you can obviously join us for the Q&A, so not long now, but really useful. So as I mentioned, we've got some special offers from Realtors and from Cloudy. Please do visit cloudyit.co.uk/virtual summit, where you can find those offers as well. And also we've got the Q&A session coming up as well. But I think we'd all just agree that it's been really exciting to see what all our, our vendors, Realtors, but also our customers, Stamford and Woughton Community Council, what they're doing in their councils respectively around app development, improving productivity. And there's so many opportunities for other councils to do that up and down the country. And you don't have to have big budgets to do it. That's the great thing. It works for the largest and the smallest of councils. So we're moving on now to the Q&A session, where we're going to get everyone back in the room, and we're just going to ask some of the questions that have been put forward by the public. So hi everyone, how you doing? Thanks for joining us again. Cool. Well, we've got a couple of questions here, so I'm just going to start from the from the top to the bottom, and we'll go through them. And some of them are more support questions, and there's a lot aimed at yourselves, Caroline and Iri and Kevin, so we'll make a start. So someone's asked here about basically, I think it's more of a support issue, but it'd be good to answer this one, around deleting old customer records that have been in their system for over 10 years. It's on the screen now. And what's the best way to do this? I think they're having troubles doing that. So
yeah, that's I'm not sure which council that's from, but they just need to contact our support team. That's all supported in terms of being able to, obviously from a GDPR point of view, any records of such nature which are no longer relevant, they can be deleted. There is a process to go through to make sure you don't end up deleting or archiving things that you shouldn't do accidentally. So if they don't know how to do it, there is actually a couple of FAQs on this, but just reach out to our support team. Support@realtors.co.uk. That'll go into the team, and they'll give you a call back to discuss. But yeah, that's absolutely supported. So yeah, no issue with that. So yeah, please reach out to them.
Brilliant. I mean, I thought so, and I mean that's the thing. With over 1,000 customers, it's we know what it's like here at Cloudy. To support everyone individually is really tricky. So I'm sure a lot of these things are quite easy fixed if they just bring it up with you and raise a ticket or pick up the phone. So glad to hear. Ryan, do you want to put another question on the screen for us? Brilliant. So thanks, Kath, for getting in touch. How do I point Realtors to the correct SharePoint folder to set it up?
Okay, so so in the latest release, which you won't have got yet because we haven't made it available on auto update, but once it's available on auto update, you'll get a new setup screen where you can effectively define which which SharePoint site and which SharePoint folders you want to use for your purchase ledger invoices. So yeah, you'll need to be on 906 or above, but the software will prompt you when that's available and will auto update. I think there was a follow-on question from the same person actually, which was related to or somebody might have asked a question about costs. So in terms of costs, it's a licensable option, but it'll be free of charge if you've got our purchase ledger, as long as you're on a 3-year commitment with us. So as long as you're on a 3-year commitment, you just need to contact us, say you want it switched on. We'll make sure you've got the relevant paperwork in place, or we'll ask you to sign that. And then we just tick it and you get that option available. If you don't want to go on a 3-year commitment, but we like to think most of our councils have been with us for years, so why not? Then it would be a chargeable upgrade. In terms of if you're on a different vendor, in terms of hosting, again, there's nothing specific about Cloudy, although obviously Cloudy have got a lot of expertise in 365. So as long as you've got Microsoft 365, you can use the feature, and it will, yes, just as long as you've got Purchase Ledger.
Brilliant. Okay, great to know. And I suppose, Kevin, the real key question as well is when is this released, please? When can people get their hands on this?
So we're on it internally at the moment. So we use Realtor Suite for all our own internal accounts. So all of our customers that see our invoices coming to them, which I'm sure you're always delighted to receive. That's all from our own solution. So we're currently using it internally, and obviously we've got it set up on our demo. We just like to use things internally for kind of a month before we make it available. So I would say by the end of July, it will be available. But if anyone wants to get on it sooner, then please contact us, because we always try and have some pilot customers first, just to get some customers using it in the real world to make sure there's nothing we've missed in our testing. So yeah, if anyone's interested, if you email our general sales@realtus.co.uk, and Caroline and I will come back to you, and we can when it's available, we'll get you updated and get you set up.
Brilliant. Okay, sounds great. Well, thanks so much for that. Ryan, any more questions, please? Okay, so we've one for Steve and Sarah. So what are the main barriers to adopting the tech you found in your councils, and how did you overcome them? So, yeah, I mean, it's an open-ended question, really, that one, isn't it? It's, whether it's people, tech, expertise, but it'll be good to hear firsthand, really. So, Steve, yourself personally, what are the barriers to adopting new technology, especially over the last 12 months during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really lucked out there in terms of we implemented quite a lot of it in the 6 months kind of prior to COVID. So by the time March last year came along, we were kind of more au fait. I think fear is one of the big issues. I think there is still, for many people, this idea that new tech is scary. We've implemented a kind of, I say paperless office. If you looked at my office, you would understand that paperless office is an aspiration rather than necessarily an achievement at the moment. But what we've done,
paper light sometimes.
I'm not even sure I could get away with that one, to be honest with you, David. What we have done is we've provided all of our councillors with a tablet and all of our officers with a laptop. So, for example, for our meetings, our papers are issued electronically. We invite comments, and people come to meetings with their tech, if you like, rather than anything else. Over the last 12 months, obviously, while we were doing meetings online, that enabled everybody to simply connect via Teams, via whichever platform we chose to use, and we were able to hold meetings that way. But for some people, I think it's fair to say every couple of meetings there will be a phone call to myself or to one of our other officers going, I can't remember my password, how do I log on, this isn't working. And part of it is, I think, just being able to support your more tech-phobic staff and or councillors to be able to overcome those fears. And once people see it working, well, actually it suddenly becomes a fabulous thing. Oh, I can do this. We've had situations where councillors who haven't had technology before suddenly have had to use it and are then embracing it fully, and are talking to their families in Australia, and are emailing, and have now got a TikTok account, and they're doing little videos of dumped rubbish. I mean, I'm not sure they're going to get a massive TikTok buy-in for that, but it's these things, I suppose. Once you kind of get through over the barrier that this is scary, you can embrace it more fully. So I think fear of the unknown is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose what we have seen is, it's really forced upon councillors and staff and officers to modernise and work remotely and continue having meetings and, voting and making some important decisions. And, I think this did terrifically well. And I remember when we first did training before COVID with your new tablets, and, all the councillors quite enjoying the new emojis and GIFs and having a bit of fun with it as well. So, the technology, when you've got the right technology, works so well. And with a bit of support and training, it can make a huge difference. So, yeah, good to hear. And Sarah, what about yourself? How would you describe it?
Yeah, our problem obviously was lots of people not at all tech savvy. I'm the youngest member of staff and youngest even in the council. We have a couple of members that are very tech savvy, which did help, but I ended up having to do individual training on how to do Teams, get them all set up because they were using their own equipment. I did quite a few refresher Teams meetings with certain councillors that wanted to go over it again. But we still have the struggles. Obviously, they like the old-fashioned ways of having papers and using the systems they've always used. So we are still trying to bring them along, kicking and screaming. So
it's a transition, and
it is.
It happens over many years. But it's important to have a level playing field and support the ones who need the support and make sure they're not excluded. And we're very passionate about that here at Cloudy with the training, the support portals we offer, etc. So, well, good to hear. Well, thanks very much for that, both of you. And Ryan, any more questions at all, please? Right, here we go. So I think one for yourself, Kevin and Caroline. What is the size of the attachments on Invoices Unlimited and save product warranty details with invoice?
Well, so from a Realtor's point of view, it's just a file in SharePoint. We don't care, what attachments you attach against the invoice. So if you wanted to put the warranty details alongside the invoice, I guess probably the only thing I would say is, in my mind, the warranty details should be more accurately recorded against the asset, because obviously you'd have to go and find back the invoice if you stored it there. Whereas if you stored it against the asset, then I think that would probably be a more logical place. But either way, there's no limitation on our point of view. I don't know if you are aware, David, of any limitations in terms of file size on SharePoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, talking about sort of what you get for your money. You get a 1 terabytes worth of personal storage in OneDrive, which tends to be enough for most people. And then in terms of the whole tenant, the whole organization, that works out at 0.75 terabytes per user. So you have 10 users, that's like, a huge amount of space, 5 terabytes more. So, we haven't met a council who has run out of space in the cloud yet. And obviously SharePoint has some great features, versioning, every single file is versioned. You can go back to every single version, open that file that was edited incorrectly and stuff. So really nice. So I think individual file sizes, it's some big numbers, maybe 10 gigabytes, something like that for an individual file. So when you're working with videos and stuff, that's when you might hit those sorts of limits. But certainly it's a good product, good platform, and it's good to see that you can accept invoices of any size. I'm sure just when it's numbers that you don't get them too big anyway. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Nigel. Really appreciate the question. Any more, Ryan? Brilliant. Another one for yourself, Kevin, there regarding invoices and uploading them.
So in terms of, so I think this question got asked earlier as well about, I guess it's the public side of this and being give members of the public access to those invoices. So from our point of view, obviously we're allowing you to store your invoices on SharePoint. We don't control the access rights to your SharePoint instant. That's down to the settings in Microsoft 365. I guess you could probably make those available publicly if you wanted to, but it's not something I really can comment on. David, I don't know whether you've got any customers that are using SharePoint for kind of publicly publishing information.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, SharePoint, you can share data in all sorts of ways. So you can share it in a read-only mode. You can share it in a mode that they can't download a file as well, so it's only locked in the browser. You can put a time limit on it. You can put a password. You can set it to review mode only or just comments as well. So loads of different options to share it, but we do have councils who share directly to the website via a SharePoint URL, whether it's the document or the folder as well. So yeah, lots of options available. It's just finding what's right for your council really, and where you are in your journey with the technology, I suppose. So but the main thing is the flexibility is there to cater for wherever you are with that. So cool, thanks very much. Okay, that's a really good question. Actually, I was wondering how long it took Sarah to produce those apps. Yeah. So how long did it take you then, Sarah, for that?
It was probably a couple of months. At the start of lockdown, obviously, was a help because certain functions we couldn't obviously do. Some of the allotment meetings that we couldn't take place, obviously, because of the restrictions with the COVID. So while I had a bit of spare time, that's when I sort of had a look at the different videos that are online and just had a play really. I'm one of these people that likes to have a look at what we've got and have a play and see if it's useful. So yeah, a couple of months.
Yeah, sounds like a great lockdown project then. I think we've all had a couple of those, haven't we, over the last 12 months. Great. Okay, well, I don't know if there's any more questions at all, Ryan, at all? No, I think we're good for now. No, we are good. Brilliant. So no more questions. Well, thanks ever so much for joining us, really. It's been really exciting to have, obviously, representatives from Realtors and our councils talk about some of the great things they're doing within technology. And this is one of many events that we're running. And as I've mentioned, please do visit cloudit.co.uk/previous-events, where we are showcasing all the previous events we've run. And also there are some special offers from Realtors as well. But yeah, thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been a really great summit. I hope it's been really useful for the people who have joined and watched. But it's been a pleasure working on this with you, and hopefully we'll work together. And I suppose we're looking forward to actually seeing each other properly in person as well, and maybe a couple of events that are coming up over the calendar. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, so brilliant. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon. But great. Well, we'll just wrap things up really now. So Ryan, if you could put my screen up, that'd be fantastic. Cheers. So as we mentioned, there is discounts for Realtors that are offering for attending this event. So more information can be found by either emailing them or visiting Summit offers. So thanks very much for putting that together. And Claudia are also offering discounts as well, along with our partners. If you visit Summit offers from the previous events we've run, we are offering discounts around training, agenda and meeting management software, as well as DMS solutions, document management solutions as well. So lots of real great offers for organisations looking to take that step towards modernising their council. Claudia, really sort of privileged and excited to be working with councils and organisations to run these events. And as I've mentioned, we've run quite a few previously already, but we've got an exciting calendar of events lined up. Next month, we'll be talking about broadcasting your council meetings, a really hot topic at the moment. We're working with Logitech and Microsoft to make this as easy as possible. I think what we've seen is that there's been huge engagement with the community during COVID, and lots of councils want to continue that. And then what we're looking at further ahead is how do you integrate agenda packs so they're digital and they can be shared and viewed within Teams and etc. and stuff like that. So you have to print those out, and we've got some great options that we'll be demonstrating at that event. We've also got a web accessibility summit where we talk about our AI powered tool that helps you with web accessibility and makes it a lot easier. We've seen a lot of councils really struggling with that, so it's really great to speak to councils and see what their experiences are. And then we've got another meeting and document management summit where we're going to go into our product decisions that you might have seen us recently talk about at the Leadership in Action event or at one of our previous events. And decisions allows you to create simplistic, easy to share agenda packs that are really engaging and very easy for councillors to engage with. So that's a great summit there. And then finally, one of our larger ones, which is our social responsibility summit, where we're going to have, I think, Steve come back and talk about his social return on investment on his new app. But also we've got experts around corporate social responsibility. And Cloudy, we have a silver accreditation award for the work we do in the community and for the environment. And we're really passionate about spreading the word and enabling our councils to also look at their corporate social responsibility, which we know they do loads of, and actually continue to develop that. And through our partners who will be speaking at the event, it'll be a great opportunity to see how that's possible. So lots of events lined up, and we'd love to see you all there. So that was our final slide, actually, but I suppose I'll just wrap things up and say thanks ever so much for joining us. It was great that you were able to attend and obviously hear our wonderful speakers talk about what they're doing in their organisations. We wish you all the best moving out of COVID and hopefully back to in-person events. We're looking really forward to coming and seeing you all the events that are lined up. So thanks ever so much, and look forward to seeing you all soon. But all the best. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Nikki Harmsworth. I'm the Responsible Finance Officer for Wokingham Town Council. I think for us, the fact that we could talk to Neil and David from Cloudy, and also Realtors as well. We had conversations with them. So I think my first point would be talk to people to find out exactly how it's worked, what the sort of disruption was, because as I say, I very wrongly thought that I was going to be, we were going to be without our finance package for days. And that just wasn't the case at all. It really did just work. You guys worked behind the scenes, and then literally it was just a flick of a button, and it seemed to sort of work. So I'm not to say that there have been a few sort of teething things where where people have forgotten to sign off in the office and then tried to log on at home. But that's a learning curve for people. But I think, really, if people are considering going to it, then talk to you guys, talk to Realtors, and then, if they want to actually contact, other town and parishes that have gone this way, then I'd be more than happy to have discussions with people. So do it from a support point of view as well, because as I say, we do have members of staff that work on a Saturday, that work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they've still been able to give a call and someone has got back to them. So although your hours are only sort of 8 till 5:30, there does always seem to be someone there that can sort of help out, which has been great. So there's sort of been some fixes that you guys have worked around for us as well. But again, if that hasn't worked, we've just picked up the phone and then one of the support guys has given us a call and it's been sorted. So yeah, really, really impressed with the customer service that you offer. It has been great.
Everybody in the staff team is significantly happier with the system and the support that we have now. So for councillors, for example, over the recent coronavirus lockdown, we've been able to maintain online meetings because all of our councillors have access to Teams via their tablets. So I can sit here in my front room, managing 19 councillors and 4 or 5 officers and members of the public, holding an online meeting with the integrated system that Cloudy provided.
The one thing that I'm really pleased to see is that our actual councillor attendance at the meetings has actually been boosted. We're getting virtually 100% attendance at all the meetings, which I think is a really good thing, and I am in no doubt whatsoever that's by the virtue of the fact that they're able to access the remote meetings via Teams.